This is the NBC Nightly News, Monday, August 3rd, 1970. Brought to you by Post Cereals, the cereals that make breakfast a little bit better.
There are numerous reports here in Washington and in Southeast Asia that American airplanes in Cambodia are flying in...
America buys 300 Hawks, work through the 1990s. Mr. Kinnock condemns violence, illegality, and Mrs. Thatcher. The pit foremen have a coal peace formula. Mr. Callahan warns Labour don't rupture the nuclear balance. And Britain manoeuvres to get its European money. Good evening. Britain's aircraft industry has won a £600 million contract from the United States Navy.
This is the 9 o'clock news. Good evening. Labour's overall majority looks like being 3.
L'édition de Vremya dont nous allons voir des extraits a été enregistrée au mois de février, peu avant les élections au Soviet suprême et au Soviet des nationalités.
Добрый вечер, товарищи.
Добрый вечер, дорогие товарищи.
This is CNN Breaking News.
From around the world and from our headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Here on BBC One, the main evening news at 20 to 10 with Michael Burke.
Police in Ulster are warning of a spiral of sectarian killings after Protestant gunmen murdered 6 Catholics watching the World Cup in a pub. Fierce fighting in Rwanda as the rebels seize more of the country. And it's a fight to the finish in the second test. Good evening. The police in Ulster say the murder of 6 Catholics in a pub late last night was part of a series of...
First, the main evening news with Michael Burke.
More blizzards paralyse half the country. Several people have been killed and thousands stranded in the Arctic weather. And British hostages arrive in Baghdad as the airlift home begins. Good evening.
In the south tonight, 2 Portsmouth warships helped sink 5 Iraqi gunboats, no Allied casualties. Mayday alert as a plane's wheels refuse to come down. And the court case that could stop wheel clamping altogether. Good evening.
Now, at just after 1 minute past 10, an extended bulletin of news with Kenneth Kent.
The armed forces now rule in Poland with martial law and the threat of execution for those who break it. At home, the snow comes back, worse than ever, but a thaw is coming behind it. And a car bomb explosion in London kills 2 men thought to be Iranians. In Poland, it's more than 20 hours since the military took over. a move, they said, to prevent...
In 30 minutes, every man meets round-the-world motorcyclist Ted Simon. And that's after a specially extended News Now at 5 minutes past 10.
Remembrance Day atrocity in Northern Ireland. A bomb has killed 11 and injured more than 60. It was planted a few yards from the War Memorial in Inniskillin. It went off without warning as the remembrance crowds were gathering. A building collapsed on top of them. 13 children are among the injured. The Queen is deeply shocked. She sent her heartfelt sympathy. The Prime Minister says the world will condemn it.
Is really desecrating the dead and a blot on mankind.
Good evening. Shortly before...
Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Ausreisewillige DDR.
Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau. Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Aus der zerstörten Ost...
Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau. Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Gut 2...
Добрый вечер. В эфире «Время», в студии программы Арина Шарапова. И, как всегда, в начале кратко об основных событиях дня. Президент Ельцин подписал в Осло 4 российско-норвежских соглашения. Удалось решить многолетнюю проблему раздела шельфа Баренцева моря. Министр обороны Павел Грачев заявил, крупномасштабные боевые действия в Чечне прекратятся после того, как президент объявит план урегулирования чеченского конфликта. Премьер-министр Украины прибыл в Москву для срочной встречи с Виктором Черномырдиным. В Лос-Анджелесе вручены кинематографические премии «Оскар».
Здравствуйте. Мы продолжаем вас информировать о...
CNN Headline News. I'm Judy Fortin, sitting in for Chuck Roberts.
This is BBC World.
Bomb disposal experts carry out a controlled explosion outside the BBC's television centre in London. The BBC's television newsroom is evacuated after the police carry out a major anti-terrorism operation. In other news, there are fears that foot-and-mouth disease may have reached mainland Europe. Welcome to BBC News. I'm Susan Osmond. The BBC...
In half an hour, a surprise visitor turns up in Ramsay Street as we join those Australian neighbours. And that's here on BBC One.
1 o'clock news from the BBC with Michael Burke.
Good afternoon. The worst storms for hundreds of years hit the south of England.
With Julia Somerville and John Humphreys.
Disaster in space. The shuttle explodes.
All 7 on board are killed.
Their families watched as it happened.
President Reagan says we'll honor the dead by going ahead with the space program.
Good evening. The 25th flight of the American space shuttle has...
Hier ist das deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Sitting in tonight, Sam Donaldson.
Good evening. President Bush today slammed the door on the Democratic Congress's...
Paula Jones versus President Clinton. Secret testimony until tonight. The president's own words about women and work. What do they reveal? A famous name, a surprise announcement.
And so I've decided not to seek re-election in 1998.
A Kennedy quits Congress. Why and what now? And in depth tonight, a special edition. Prosperity, the best of times, the booming economy. Are you getting your share? And how long will it all last?
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Substituting tonight, Brian Williams.
Good evening. The President of the United...
In tonight's news, chaos in China. Beijing residents are tense and frightened as confusion within army ranks and the continuing violence pushes the country towards civil war and the people into deep despair.
We think that we should live peacefully. We don't want the army. We don't want gunshots in the fight. You know, I mean, firing at the innocent people.
The CTV National News with Lloyd Robertson.
Good evening, Beijing.
Hier ist das deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Tausende Urlauber auf den Kanarischen Inseln können aufatmen.
Добрый вечер.
Здравствуйте, товарищи.
Здравствуйте, в эфире «Весть».
This is CNN, a network of Turner Broadcasting System.
The Navy destroys an unarmed Trident II missile this morning after what appeared to be a successful launch.
And the government of Nicaragua asked to meet with Contra leaders a week ahead of schedule. We'll have those stories and more as the news continues for this Thursday, January the 21st.
This is Daywatch on CNN. With Reed Collins in Washington, Dave Monsees in New York, and from CNN Center in Atlanta, Molly McCoy and Brian Nelson.
Good morning, everyone. Nicaraguan Contra rebels.
Здравствуйте, информационная служба Первого канала о событиях этого воскресенья. Как обычно, мы начинаем с краткого обзора главных новостей дня. Боевики в Грозном складывают оружие. Еще 128 человек, воевавших против федеральных сил в восточной части чеченской столицы, сдались бойцам Беслана Гантамирова. В других районах города, и особенно на подступах к площади Минутка, продолжаются ожесточенные бои. Бессмысленное в своей жестокости преступление в Калининградской области. Сбежавший из части солдат срочной службы убил семью из 5 человек, после чего застрелился сам. Сегодня его тело нашли рядом с поселком, где произошла трагедия. Главный доклад российской делегации на Всемирном экономическом форуме в Давосе. Первый вице-премьер Михаил Касьянов рассказывает о состоянии экономики нашей страны. Лейтмотив выступления, которое проходит буквально в эти минуты, звучит так: «Западу не надо упускать шанс помочь России». В Милане произошли столкновения полиции с иммигрантами, недовольными условиями проживания в общежитиях, предоставленных властями. После того, как 3 сотрудников правоохранительных органов получили ранения, против демонстрантов был применен слезоточивый газ. Второй день в Грозном.
This is NBC News Update. Here is Jane Pauley.
Good evening. Secretary of State Haig says he's...
Tonight on Action News, there's more on that Salmon X2 band, a Vietnamese Horatio Alger story in Loomis, Buzzy the cross-eyed tiger, and other friends at the Folsom Zoo. Steve Summers tells you what will happen to the camellia bull. Betty Vasquez checks on the weekend weather. And now, Dave Walker and the Action News team.
Good evening. Topping the news, the question...
TV5 Eyewitness News with Bill J. Cox, Wilma Smith, and the Eyewitness News team.
Good evening, everyone.
Now, live, local, late-breaking. This is 11 News.
Tonight, tens of millions gather to watch the Seinfeld finale, but a power outage leaves thousands in Baltimore out of luck.
2 infants die unexpectedly at a daycare center. Tonight, the tragedy is beginning to sink in on the community.
But first, thousands watch in horror as the Orioles star pitcher is drilled with a line drive to the face. Good evening, I'm Rod Daniels.
And I'm Marianne Bannister. Here's what's happening tonight at 11. It was a scene brought in an eerie hush over the crowded Camden Yards, and it brought the game to a standstill.
A Friday of disasters. A major earthquake in Italy strikes at the heart of an ancient culture. And in the South Pacific, an Airbus crashes in an area clouded by smoke, killing more than 200. From Florida, lessons in fighting back against violent crime from an informal posse of seniors armed and shooting. In depth tonight, a commentary on the 90s, informal Fridays sweeping the workplace. That's big, big business for the casual clothing and shoe companies.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. In the middle of Italy, in the heart of one of the most picturesque...
И вновь в эфире специальный выпуск новостей на канале НТВ в студии.
Добрый вечер, товарищи.
Добрый вечер.
Здравствуйте. На телеканале «Россия» в эфире программа «Вести» с 20-минутным обзором новостей и анонсом событий предстоящего дня. После минутной сводки Гидрометцентра смотрите в нашем выпуске. Сегодня в Грозном на заседании специальной наблюдательной комиссии будет продолжено рассмотрение вопроса о месте пребывания дудаевской делегации. После вчерашнего террористического акта в парижском метро силы полиции и жандармерии по решению французского правительства будут усилены армейскими подразделениями. Сегодня в колумбийском городе Картахена начинает работу 11-я конференция глав государств и правительств 113 неприсоединившихся стран. Так, в минувший день в здании миссии...
Verehrte Zuschauer, willkommen zur Heute-Sendung. Das Olympische Feuer...
Guten Abend am Pfingstmontag, endlich Feiertage, wo auch das Wetter stimmt. Nun aber zu den Schlagzeilen.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Mit einem
KW TV8, Cleveland.
Good evening. Judd's off tonight.
Channel 11 presents New News with Tom Reither.
Good afternoon as we begin the big Labor Day weekend.
Islamabad, Decatur, Nashville, Jamaica, Jonestown, Chicago, Weatherford, Topeka, Tokyo, Madison, Fort Worth, Fort Wayne, Warsaw, Bangor.
Ready, camera one, Boston. Take 11, Mike Q. To New York. Stand by, ready 3, take 3, Mike Q. 3, start to slow zoom in a little bit. Roll tape, take 3. Ready 13, full. Ready, camera 3, 1 center up.
Good evening, I'm David Walker.
And I'm Lois Hart. Now here's the news. President Carter has arrived in Fort Wayne, Indiana for a brief visit with civil rights leader Vernon.
Guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren. Bundestagspräsidentin Annemarie Renger hat die Bürger der Bundesrepublik aufgerufen, sich zu...
Terrorists bring war to the very heart of America. Countless people die in the nation's blackest day. Panic grips the streets. Now Bush vows revenge.
From ITN, the ITV News with Trevor McDonald.
Good evening. Important symbol.
Administration. Bill Clinton reassures financial markets and warns foreign adversaries. Rebuilding the American economy. Clinton says it won't be easy. And health care, it's right at the top of the agenda, but how would it work?
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Reporting tonight from NBC News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. Bill Clinton was properly restrained today, and President Bush promised to go out with style. So the transition to a new era in American politics is off.
This is Channel 3, WTIC-TV in Hartford, Connecticut.
Good evening. This is Dick Bertel with the local edition of the 6 o'clock report. The controversy over the People Mover proposed for Brett...
The 6 o'clock news from the BBC with Peter Sissons and Anna Ford.
Good evening. The headlines at 6 o'clock. Troops are to be...
Liebe Zuschauer, noch einmal Meldungen der Heute-Redaktion.
Hier ist das deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Verehrte Zuschauer, hier noch einmal die Redaktion mit Nachrichten.
Здравствуйте.
Добрый вечер, товарищ.
It's like one guy just grabbed his head and took his head and shot him back to the head. Yeah, everything at the gun was fake. And one guy was shot and then he like got up and tackled him and he was shot again.
It's happened again, this time at a high school in Springfield, Oregon.
The suspect is a 15-year-old freshman. And this is CNN Today. I'm Natalie Allen.
I'm Lou Waters. CNN's coverage of the tragedy in Oregon continues. Let's begin with a quick rundown of the latest developments, at least.
Пожар в Останкино. Спасатели поднялись до отметки 342 метра. Они пытаются найти нескольких человек, которых считают пропавшими без вести. Они могут находиться в одном из лифтов. Огонь сейчас локализован, но окончательно потушить его не удается. Его удастся лишь через несколько дней. И специалисты не исключают, что в будущем верхнюю часть башни придется демонтировать. А российские власти в экстренном порядке ищут возможность возобновления телевещания на Москву и область. Президент страны, давая оценку происшедшему, заявил, что ЧП в Останкино показывает, в каком состоянии находятся жизненно важные объекты и в каком состоянии находится вся страна. Итак, в эфире «Вести», в студии Ольга Кокорекина.
Отставка правительства – шаг, который откладывался с осени. Перспективы Виктора Черномырдина после ордена за заслуги перед Отечеством второй степени. Интервью только для зрителей программы «Время». Сергей Кириенко мобилизован на экономический рост. Президент покровительствует новому молодому реформатору политически и отечески. Анатолий Чубайс – конец самой дутой репутации десятилетия. Выборы на Украине. Украинцы могут выбрать трудное счастье. Латвийские фашисты. Специальный репортаж программы. Здравствуйте. В сегодняшнем сенсационном интервью нашей программе Виктор Черномырдин.
Доброе утро. Информационная служба канала ОРТ продолжает свою работу. Вы смотрите.
Здравствуйте, товарищи. Сегодня...
This is CNN Headline News. You're in tune with the world.
President Reagan says that papers obtained from the Carter White House
wasn't looking real promising, but it's what makes it all worthwhile.
The emotional rescue is over.
We'll take you to Oregon, where the last of the lost mountaineers are fighting for their lives.
We'll ride with the Derby winner, jockey Bill Shoemaker, and fly into the past with a remote control reptile. All ahead this hour on the CBS Morning News.
Very good Friday morning to you. I'm Forrest.
Good morning. All is quiet this morning in the Gulf of Sidra. There have been no new firings by either U.S. forces or Libyans in the past 24 hours, but the maneuvers by American ships of the Sixth Fleet are continuing. Meanwhile, half a world away in another hotspot, Sandinistas from Nicaragua have crossed over the border into neighboring Honduras. Reports from Honduras say the U.S.-backed Contras are fighting the Sandinista troops who, according to these reports, are trying to retreat. Libya and Nicaragua are on the front burner today, Wednesday, March the 26th, 1986.
From NBC News, this is Today with Bryant Gumbel and Jane Pauley.
And good morning. Welcome to Today on this Wednesday morning, midweek in the final week.
Tonight, the Hawke Labor government returned to power.
That this will be a government for all Australians, not only for those who voted for us, but also for those who did not.
Good evening, Edwin Maher in Melbourne.
7 Nightly News with Chris Bath.
State leaders set to air their grievances with John Howard. Students rescued from the Whitewater nightmare. And a little boy given the kiss of life. Good evening. State leaders say they'll be giving John...
Military chief takes control in Fiji after deadly rampage by George Speight's men. Still no apology or treaty from Prime Minister, despite yesterday's big march. And deadly bite to Eastern Australia's big freeze.
From National 9 News, this is Nightline with Jim Whaley.
Good evening. There were sudden and dramatic developments in Fiji's political crisis tonight.
This is a CBS News special report. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here is Susan Spencer.
There's been a dramatic and sudden escalation.
Guten Morgen, verehrte Zuschauer.
Meine Damen, meine Herren, guten Abend. Seit heute früh.
A baffling illness with AIDS-like symptoms raises questions about the safety of the blood supply. More debate inside the Republican Party over abortion and a woman's right to choose. Now the First Lady's getting into the fight. And Eye on America visits red-hot Houston, where the heat is on President Bush and running mate Dan Quayle.
George Bush is in trouble, not only in Texas, but nationally.
He's had some trouble, but I think he can come out of it.
Can't stand the heat, get out the kitchen.
This is the CBS Evening News. Good evening, Dan Rather reporting. U.S. health officials.
Attack on America, a special edition of NBC Nightly News. Terrorists declare war on the United States, hijacking jetliners, crashing them into New York's World Trade Towers. Another airliner into the Pentagon, threatening the seat of national power. Thousands likely dead. Downtown New York in chaos. America wondering, what next? On Midtown Manhattan, and tonight America is at war with terrorists after a stunning series of attacks today against targets in New York and in Washington, D.C. the World Trade Center. The nation's capital, where tomorrow at high noon, George Bush will be sworn in as the 41st President of the United States.
From Washington, NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening from Washington, D.C. We're atop the Department of Labor over...
Wintereinbruch in Westösterreich. Bergstraßen waren durch Schnee blockiert. Überschwemmungen in Vorarlberg. Kreis gekündigt an, neue Gesprächsrunde mit ÖVP-Obmann Mock am kommenden Freitag. Wirtschaftsflaute stoppt Zunahme der Krankmeldungen. Industrie- und Sozialminister dennoch für mehr Kontrollen. Aufsichtsratsvorsitzender Kandutsch, Wiener AKH wird erst 1989 fertig. Weitere Verzögerung um 2 Jahre. Zweites Treffen Hey-Gromyko ohne Ergebnis, aber weitere Gesprächsrunde vereinbart. Das Wetter morgen reichlich bewölkt, örtlich Regen und kühl, Tageshöchsttemperaturen bis 18 Grad.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Ja, Sie haben es eben in den Schlagzeilen
Goedenavond, dames en heren. Sovjetleider Gorbachev.
Guten Abend. Im Tauziehen das Hearing über das Atomkraftwerk.
The following is a rebroadcast of the 11 o'clock Daily News and is a public service of WAVY TV.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Barbara Ciara. Les Smith.
9 p.m.
Good evening. The Soviet Parliament's gone into recess.
أسعد الله مساءكم.
Các bạn thân mến, bông hoa nhỏ mở đầu buổi
位于台北市金山南路一段的东门市场，今天凌晨1点钟左右发生火警，造成李世聪一家5口葬身火窟的不幸惨剧。早安，欢迎您准时在6点半钟收看。
I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. The death of Challenger and of 7 American pioneers.
Sometimes painful things like this happen. It's all part of the process of exploration and discovery. It's all part of taking a chance and expanding man's horizons. The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
The impact of today's tragedy on space exploration, on national security, and on all Americans. That's our story tonight.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
We need help in discovering meaning in what happened today, and we hope that some of our guests will be able to provide it.
Добрый вечер.
Здравствуйте, товарищи.
Action News is next on TV2 Atlanta.
Good evening, I'm Monica Kaufman.
And I'm Jim Wilkerson. Flash floods seem to be less threatening in the North Georgia mountains tonight.
There was heavy shelling in Beirut, killing 75 people last night.
And thousands of mourners view Pope Paul for the last time.
This is Action News with Monica Kaufman and Jim Wilkerson. Jim Biondi with sports and Johnny Beckman with the weather.
Well, here in Atlanta, it's one of those nights that from the inside...
Good evening. Poll watchers are reporting heavy voter turnout around...
Добрый вечер.
Здравствуйте. Сегодня в Москве...